Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Raymond Yeung. Here are tonight's top stories. 2 nurses and a food delivery worker test preliminary positive, sparking concerns of more COVID clusters. Testing centers in Tuen Mun are packed following orders to get screened. And the first person found guilty under the national security law drops his appeal. There are fears of more COVID clusters after 2 nurses tested preliminary positive for the virus. A food delivery worker was also declared preliminary positive, and his condition was found only after he was sent to hospital following a car accident. Winner Wong reports.
2 private clinic nurses and a part-time Food Panda delivery worker are among the preliminary COVID cases announced today. According to the Center for Health Protection, the 2 nurses belong to JP Partners Medical Center, a group with several clinics across the city. One of them had been on duty at the Gold Coast location when a patient who later tested positive came in. The nurse also studies at Baptist University's School of Continuing Education and is enrolled in the Bachelor of Nursing program. The school said it will thoroughly disinfect all the places that the student visited while on campus from Monday to yesterday. Health authorities are still trying to figure out how the second nurse, a 22-year-old woman, might have been infected, since she did not work overlapping shifts with her preliminary positive colleague.
It is possible that there were some silent transmission in the clinic setting among the staff of that clinics. So both nurses worked in more than one clinic. That's why we have to check when the other staff had contact with them during that period of time.
Meanwhile, a man from Pakistan also tested preliminary positive. The 29-year-old is a part-time construction worker and Food Panda delivery man. After being injured in a car accident, he was sent to the emergency unit of the Alice Ho Mew Ling Netherseoul Hospital, then transferred to Prince of Wales Hospital in Sha Tin, where he eventually ended up in the intensive care unit. He was found with the virus when he underwent routine screening for incoming patients. Hong Kong had 14 confirmed COVID cases today, 9 of them imported. Winner Wong, HKIBC.
Long lines have continued to circle COVID testing centers in Tuen Mun, with some expressing fears that they could be infected by the large numbers of people in close proximity. Those who went to places visited by COVID patients must undergo screening, with some facing up to 8 tests in 2 weeks. Johanna Chan reports.
Even before 8 a.m., there were already long queues for COVID tests at the station in Yao Oi Estate in Tuen Mun. A family of 4 running a pharmacy at the HKIBC shopping mall in the estate tested positive this week. Suspecting silent transmission chains, at least 10 areas in the district were slapped with compulsory testing notices. Residents must be tested 6 times over the next 2 weeks if they visited the shopping mall. But the wait has caused problems. This boy tried to be screened after school, but ended up waiting until 11 p.m. He said he couldn't book a slot despite trying many times. This man, who said he was too old to stand too long, brought along a chair, a radio, and water. Others were concerned about being infected while waiting, as there were many people in line. Even more people queued up at the Siulun Community Hall. Some were upset about the number of tests they must undergo. This man said his primary one son has to take 8 tests. He said after starting to get tests for visiting the HKIBC mall, his son was told to undergo more screening because he studies in Mrs. Cheongyam on Millennium School. He added some of the dates were different, but he came alone as they had difficulty booking the same testing slot. The Center for Health Protection urged residents who work outside the district to get tested elsewhere to shorten the waiting time. When an 11th center was opened this afternoon at the Siulun Sports Ground, people rushed to get tested. Johanna Chan, HKIBC.
Health experts say those with chronic illnesses and at high risk of COVID should wear 2 masks for better protection. This comes after a 20-year-old student became infected at a hot pot restaurant. Here's Johanna Chan again.
Experts are again split over whether aerosol transmissions can trigger infections at hot pot gatherings. A 20-year-old student contracted COVID at Causeway Bay restaurant Nabe Rawa, where a previous case had dined at the same time.
即係打邊爐咧，好似係即係會霧化咗嗰啲病毒啊咁樣。
The Center for Health Protection said it's worried about aerosol transmissions in hot pot eateries. There is concern that steam can carry the virus. But City University Dean of School of Energy and Environment Chan Chak-keung said the steam from hot pot is unlikely to infect people because virus-carrying droplets are relatively large and cannot travel far. He said infection would depend on the airflow in a restaurant. Veteran engineer Yoon Pak-leung said if fans are positioned in the wrong place, there could be a higher risk of transmission in hot pot and barbecue restaurants. Government experts Yoon Kwok-yong and David Ho said other factors, like sitting too closely or using utensils contaminated with the virus, had a higher possibility. Ho added that wearing a cloth mask on top of a surgical mask could offer better protection, as it pushes the corners of the mask closer to the face. This came after Yoon said yesterday that people can consider wearing 2 masks for better protection. Today, he clarified that not everyone needs to do so. But he recommended double masks for those with a chronic illness, people who cannot get jabs, and workers in high-risk areas. Johanna Chan, HKIBC.
At least 1 case of the Omicron variant has been found in the northeastern port city of Dalian, where authorities have isolated the patient's neighborhood and quarantined close contacts. The patient is one of 2 asymptomatic cases identified yesterday. Both are university students returning from Tianjin, where there's an Omicron outbreak. The mainland added 124 local COVID cases yesterday, including another one in Shenzhen, next door to Hong Kong. Hotspot Henan province recorded 76 infections, 43 of them in locked-down Anyang city. Another 41 patients were found in Tianjin. But the outbreak in Xi'an appears to have been contained, with daily cases dwindling to only 6. Locally, the first person convicted under the national security law has withdrawn his appeal. Sources said Tong Yang Kit made the decision months ago and informed the court by letter. He did not tell his legal team, which was reportedly assigned by the legal aid department. Tong's appeal hearing was originally scheduled for March. The 24-year-old former waiter was sentenced last July to 9 years imprisonment for inciting secession and terrorism. He had ridden his motorcycle bearing a protest flag into a group of police officers on July 1st, 2020. A man has been sentenced to 12 years in prison for throwing corrosive liquid at his neighbor. 58-year-old Wong Kin-keung was also jailed for 1 month for committing the offense while serving a suspended sentence for attacking the same person with a hammer. Wong had admitted splashing highly concentrated sulfuric acid on his neighbor in November 2020. The judge said while he understood the pair had been having long disputes for a long time over Wong's wheelchair in the hallway, his actions exceeded that of personal grudges. He added that Wong laughed after the attack, showing he had no remorse. A woman accused of attacking police in Times Square has been put behind bars for 31 months. 35-year-old Yeung was among the protesters who gathered in Causeway Bay on July 1, 2020, 1 day after the national security law took effect. She was accused of dropping a 7-kilo stanchion from the 3rd floor of a building onto officers below. The judge said the protesters had chosen a special day to challenge government authority. He added that Yeung's refusal to mitigate showed that she felt her passion would be applauded. Yeung was also ordered to pay $1,000 in compensation to the owner of the stanchion. And coming up after the break. calls are mounting for Boris Johnson to quit over a Downing Street party scandal. And a judge in New York clears the way for a sexual assault lawsuit against Prince Andrew.